Small on size, big on firepower. Here's your look at the Threezero Armored Trooper Votoms ROBO-DOU Rabidly dog. Threezero is excited to announce the heavyweight Armored Trooper Rabidly dog as the first item from the ROBO-DOU line based on the classic anime franchise Armored Trooper Votoms. ROBO-DOU Rabidly dog is a non-scale articulated figure standing approximately 15.9 centimeters tall, made of ABS, PVC, POM, and zinc alloy diecast. The zinc alloy diecast interior frame provides a total of 76 points of articulation. Threezero's notable layered paint techniques and weathered effects are applied to the figure, creating an impressive detailed surface. Just before we get a closer look at the Armored Trooper Votoms ROBO-DOU Rabidly dog, let's grab the tape measure as I currently have right now and measure off to the top of the figure. Technically, the antennas are something that's part of it, but I consider really only the top of the head being the highest point in the figure. And based on that alone, you're looking at the ROBO-DOU Rabidly dog being about 6.5 inches in height, or it's going to be about 16.5 centimeters tall. The first thing we'll have a look at is the instruction manual that comes included with ROBO-DOU, which is in fact actually bigger than the actual figure itself. The instruction guide is always good, of course, to look through first before you start to tamper around with anything on the figure, because of course there are fragile joints. I'll do my best to try to point those out in this review. He'll do as well the breakdown of all the things that come included with the figure as well, and then continuing through it basically shows you all the other articulation points, all of which we will cover in this review shortly. Running now through the accessories to come include the ROBO-DOU Rabidly dog, some of which I've already taken the liberty of adding. Like the antennas you'll see on the top of the head, I've already added those. I've also taken the liberty of already adding the backpack, but I'll show you how those install in a second. Of the things at least we can see, the figure comes included with a non-articulated figure of Kiriko Kuvi. Unfortunately, though, the figure doesn't have any posability whatsoever. His prime purpose is, in fact, just to actually sit inside the Rabidly dog, and I'll show you how that works in a second. Other than lacking a little bit of posability points, a really nice little version of Kiriko. The coloring on the eyes, of course, or what would be his eyes underneath that. The helmet is painted nicely in a metallic kind of green color. And of course, you've got some breathing parts there in silver. Overall, again, a nice little painted, though non-articulated version of Kiriko. The figure also comes included. This is an effect I really love the fact that they included. He has the shell case ejection effect piece, or if you want to do the arm punch. The arm punch basically ejects a bullet casing off the side of his arm like he does in the series. And it's, as you can see, what they've done here is they've done a translucent plastic piece, kind of more frosted the colors, more smoked the colors here on the side, the closest to the casing, of course, that's ejecting out. And then the part that's going to attach then onto the forearm is also a little bit darker as well. Love the idea that they actually took the time to include that. I love also the fact that they took the time to include the bomb for the backpack. This sits actually in the top of the backpack and then can be deployed through the bottom. Don't worry, I'll show you guys how that works in a second. The figure as well comes include two swappable hands. One is sort of a relaxed hand, although really it does kind of look more like a gestured or dynamic hand than anything else. And then there's also a hand for specifically holding the handy solid shooter. The gun in which it actually comes included with comes in actually two pieces. First, you actually get the solid shooter, which is cast here again in blue plastic. But I love the little wear and tear marks that they've added across this by brushing just across a little bit of silver and a little bit of brown or a little bit of gray. Boy, does that ever make for a really nice old or kind of war-torn looking weapon. Now, it does also have a clip. The clip, if you look to the side of the gun here, there's a slot right there. You take yourself the clip and it fits just to the side. Now, I've tried to get this all the way in there, and it only really succeeds by putting a lot of pressure. It's not just a case where you can actually take the clip. Now it's even harder to remove it. If you take the clip and just try to push it in as it is, you might not notice it goes in all the way and just assume that that's as far as the clip will actually go. No, you have to put a lot more pressure against it to have the clip sitting inside the handy solid shooter. And of course, this can be wielded in his hand. Not much of holding anything right now because the figure does also have a closed fist. The closed fist, if I can just reach the side here, it's just a case, first of all, you'll just lift the flap on the side of the forearm. Remove the hand by just wiggling back and forth from the post. Then pop the hand that you want to use in place. There you go. And then from there, you can take yourself the gun. The whole time I'm doing this and trying not to bang the camera in the process, I'm really being careful of the antennas. The antennas I have now dropped 3 times total, but that's basically what it looks like with the handy solid shooter gun in his hand. And of course, there's also additional articulation as well, all of which we will cover off the territory in a second. I did already mention, though, that the figure does have 2 things I've already taken the luxury of adding. that being in his antennas. The antennas, though, on the top of the ROBO-DOU, you can see attached right here on the back with the holes. Now, you get 2 of these. I noticed the first time I was trying to put the antennas on the back of the Rabidly dog, I had a real hard time. I had an easier time when I started to twist this back and forth. You do really kind of have to widen the hole on the back, because when you put it in immediately, you think that the hole is way too small. So you just have to kind of dowel it back and forth till finally those antennas attach in place. Don't kid yourself, though. Several times of trying to move the figure around, I've knocked the blasted antennas off, and I've had to make sure I found where they went on the floor and put them back in place. The other thing I've already taken the liberty of doing is also adding the backpack. The backpack swings forward. I don't know if you can actually see this or not. Bringing the backpack out, you may even need the assistance of a screwdriver to pry this out. But once that is out, there is a little ledge and there's clips on either side. The backpack basically, let's see if I can actually, you know what, I really don't want to bang the antennas. That's my only concern. There we go. Oh, did I just drop? Okay, it's right here. It's right here. We can retrieve it. Here's basically what the backpack looks like. See how there's a knob on either side? It basically sits inside those little hooked sections of his torso. You just want to snap it in place. You might find an easier time of doing this if you bring the backpack out first. Then you can put a lot more pressure against it. If you have it this way, it might be a little harder to kind of lean and gauge where exactly those are supposed to go. And of course, I knew doing this, it was going to remove one of the antennas. So again, we'll just twist it around till finally it gets in place. Those are all the accessories, though, that come included with Rabidly dog. Now, though, I'll show you how to install the figure. So first of all, you would take yourself Kiriko. And one thing I will say, though, about the Rabidly dog is you really have to be careful of the canopy here. The canopy is something that swings forward. And it's basically going to lock in place and give you a pretty seamless, consistent look with no gap or spacing. You just want to kind of bring the arms out just a little bit. I mean, it's not really something you have to worry about too much, but you will have to worry about the tolerances. Just make sure that these shoulder pads are out of the way, because you really don't want anything to get in the way of trying to move the canopy. The canopy, basically, first, you'll want to lift up like this. It sits basically on 2 posts on the back here. And it might even help, too, to kind of get your finger back there and sort of hold it, kind of brace it while you're bringing it up as far as you can get it. Once it's as high as it can go, then you just bring this back, and now you got yourself the canopy or cockpit inside. A really nicely detailed canopy. I keep calling it the canopy. Canopy's up here. A very detailed looking cockpit section. It does actually have the little joystick that can swing forward. This will make things a lot easier when it comes to installing the pilot. There's also a section down below here as well that you can flip up, and then you can get visibility to then his feet. When you're taking Kiriko, take the figure and just basically slide him as far down into the cockpit as you can get it. Now, you don't really want to have it to the point where you're trying to tuck it underneath. You're basically just wanting to put it straight flat down. But you want to make sure that the joysticks are far enough forward, there we go, that he doesn't clip it in the process. And then you just basically just move him, wiggle him down until eventually he gets far enough down there. You can also bring these back up there as well. And I haven't yet, but obviously you can take your figur's hands, and just wrap them around the joysticks. Then from there, you're going to take yourself the canopy, and you're just going to lower it down as far as you can get it. Again, like, these are very small, narrow posts, so just be careful while doing it. And then you may just want to have to bring them down a little bit lower, and then finally you just want to close the flap on the front. Other than maybe just correcting it just a little bit, I may even have to have Kiriko maybe sitting a little bit lower than what he is right now. It does look nice to actually have the pilot sitting inside. Now, one thing I did also say, though, that there was also the ejection of the bomb on the back. With this little bomb casing that we had a look at here, if you open up the top here, this section here does open up, although it's really hard to get your finger in there, especially if you don't have nails like myself. Just get your finger in there. Let's, you know what, do I have a screwdriver? I don't have a screwdriver. There we go. There we go. Just bring this up, and then you'll take the casing, or take the actual bomb, and you'll sit it inside the backpack like this. Now, right there, you're thinking to yourself, oh, I'm only really just storing it away. What is it really going to be able to do? Well, other than worrying about having this rolling onto the floor, you bring the backpack down. Just going to bring this down like this. This basically then just ejects the bomb out. And I'm going to remove it right now just for the risk that that's going to get lost onto the floor. This basically brings down, and I don't know if you can see this or not, as you're bringing this down, it straightens out a little track, and then the bomb that you had originally put up here now slides down to the bottom. Similar to what it would have been in the series. I really think that that's a fun touch. That, I mean, the fact that it's actually a functioning little ledge, a little slope, really is a nice touch on Threezero's part. The other thing I certainly did want to show you as well is the punch. So that with the punch, basically what it is this thing swings forward. The entire forearm swings forward. And then what it does is then it ejects out the casing. The shell, basically, if I just bring the figure around here, you can see there on the top there's a little slot. Take this part that has the tab, and you just want to attach this in place. It's not an easy thing to do. It's almost very similar, in fact, to the antennas. When you're putting it down, you kind of have to wiggle it back and forth and make the space a little bit bigger. But then it ejects out the shell from the top when it does the power punch. Very, very cool. Other things I can certainly show you as well is that the fact that the figure has, like in the series, one hand on one side and then one claw on the other. The claw does actually open up. There's a little bit of posability here on the side, but mostly it's just a hinge that moves back and forth. And this, of course, can also swing forward and back as well. Actually, both the arms do have the function of swinging forward and back. The detailing on the face sculpt, of course, from what we see, at least from Rabidly Dog, you got the little visor scope there on the top, colored very nicely. I don't think it's so much colored, as they likely have probably used a translucent red plastic here and a translucent green plastic here, but the scope actually does swivel back and forth. So not without actually moving the entire head, you can take just this part, and this swivels or swings back and forth. A really nice little detail also as well. Weathered, wear and tears, all the things you'll find here on the Rabidly Dog. Parts that normally, of course, would be blue have all these additional scratched on silver paint marks. It really does add a little bit of wear and tear. And it does overall. For a size, for a robot, really this size, it packs a lot of detail. And quite heavy, too. It's kind of really hard to gauge based on just the size alone. You almost would imagine just picking up and imagine it being light. But the fact it does have a metal frame does make it a lot heavier of a robot, or a lot heavier of a mech suit than what you would probably expect. Now, for the articulation here for Rabidly Dog, again, just be careful of those antennas. The head, we'll call it at least the head, does rotate back and forth. This does also lift up and down as well. So you can actually see inside. There's the pilot. If I say hello to the pilot, you can swing this back and forth. You can also as well swing the front scope forward and back as well. The front of the body, now one thing you will want to be careful, and I've already popped this off a couple of times as well, is the skirting. The skirting is just a case. You can see there's a little lip of plastic. It basically fits just on top of that little barrel, that little part of plastic there. And you just want to clip it back in place. The problem with the skirts, though, is that every single time I'm trying to move the figure around, let's just grab, for example, his torso. The torso does swivel back and forth, but again, while doing this, there's not really a lot of places you can put your hands, and it always really results in the same thing happening. I put my finger against this clip, and I always unpeg or detach the skirting. The skirting, again, is a simple fix. The only thing about it, though, I'm just going to bring the backpack up just a little bit here. The only thing about it, though, is there's only just so much plastic to work with when it comes to that clamp, that I worry that down the road, if I'm not too careful, that eventually will start to fracture. And hey, you never know, it could potentially break as well. Just get the skirting back on there. Of all the skirts actually on the ROBO-DOU, this is the one that bothers me the most. It's always something that frequently pops off every single time I'm trying to move it. And it also doesn't even help either that the backpack always gets in the way. Can we get this back in place? I think we almost have it. There we go. No, almost. There we go. Okay. For the figure's arm articulation, now these arms do come out as well. We'll eventually get into the crouch position. I'll show you guys how that also works as well, but the arms do rotate all the way around. The shoulder pads are ones that also swivel outward. You can see the way that the hinge works there. Let's just bring the backpack down a little bit. The arm does have a swiveling here. It does also have a hinge, but when you're hinging it, you want to make sure that the hinge is facing forward. Because, of course, if you have it facing this way, try to bend the arm, it's not going to work. So you want to make sure that the arm is brought this way around, and then you've got yourself a double hinge on the elbow. The hands also, again, rotate back and forth, but you've got the little flap you may want to just bring out first before you start to do any swiveling around. And the same thing also really applies for this hand, too. Like the arm, again, can come out at 90 degrees. Take the arms and you can move them forward and back. And again, you can swivel the forearm, double hinge on the elbow. And in this case, actually both hands do this. You can bring these forward and back. There's a little bit of a swivel on the track there, a little swivel, hinge out, where you can actually pull this out and retract it. Again, this also swivels back and forth. And there's articulation as well for the claw, so you can bring that out as well. Continuing to pop off that back skirt. It always is this thing it's always the thing of the figure that always seems to remove. I mean, it won't be any bit of an issue once I've got this guy displayed on the shelf, but like just up to now, doing any bit of reviewing for this guy makes things a little bit more difficult. For the legs, what you will want to do is bring the skirts out. Bring them out on the sides, bring them out on the front. And of course, that one flap I keep complaining about, you can also bring that out as well. So the legs can freely move forward at 90 degrees. They can freely as well move back 90 degrees. And you can freely move them out at also 90 degrees. There's a lot of weight actually happening here. This seems to be all die cast. There is no swiveling at the top of the thigh. There is, however, though, a double hinge on the knee. The way that the hinge basically works is there's a hinge right here that allows the knee to bend in a normal way. And then there's also a hinge right here that also allows the leg move forward. This will have more to do when we get them in a crouch position. The flap as well for the feet, just bring those forward, will allow some additional toe articulation or foot articulation. You can also rock it back and forth as well. And again, the Rabidly dog does also have toe articulation, although it's a little tighter and a little harder to move. With the ROBO-DOU, though, finally shown, and showing you guys again the articulation for this figure, we're going to get him into his crouching position. Now, with the crouching position, it's one of those things that's a little tricky the first time you try to do this, but then after enough times that you've actually done it, makes things a little easier to handle. Of course, it always would be the case. I would say go back to your instruction guide, because the instruction guide shows you exactly step by step how to crouch him. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to pick up the ROBO-DOU and just bring out these skirting parts again. I just hope that the back section is going to fall off on me again. We're just going to bring these up. One thing I didn't mention, though, in the articulation end of the review is that you can also take these legs and hinge them down. They just slide on a track, and they give you a little bit of extra clearance. The whole idea with that is the fact that these will eventually come out. So what you will want to do is just bring the flaps forward for the feet. You just want to be able to bend the feet a little bit. And these also do lift up as well. Just want to bring it up back like this. Just bring it as far back as you can get it. You really do want to also bring the backpack out forward as well. Take the other side of it. And careful of those flaps. We're just going to take the top, swing the leg forward like this. Then take this section of foot and bring it down as well. And if you have everything really lined up, you'll see that the flap lines to this, and it's sort of parallel to what was initially the knee joint. And then again, you're just going to want to bring the backpack down just a little bit. And then from there, you're going to just want to bring the legs, or bring the arms forward. You can also as well take those arms and swing them out just a little bit. Remember, we looked at the fact that you could actually take these and they sit on a track. You basically can slide them out just a little bit. That might also help to kind of stabilize the figure, and then just bring the flaps back down as best you can get it, and you basically have it. Not 100%, but you have him basically in a crouch position like he has in the series. Don't know if I necessarily will ever really display the figure. Let's actually just bring this back a little bit. I don't know if I will actually really display the figure like this. I think if anything, having ROBO-DOU just displayed on the shelf with the gun is probably my way of going when it comes to displaying the figure. All in all, though, it's a really nice release from the folks over at Threezero. If you are a big fan of ROBO-DOU, for example, and like the design of Rabidly dog, it's a nice one to pick up. The thing also about these figures, too, is the fact that while looking at them, they're very misleading, because you look at them and you don't think that they're heavy at all, until you eventually pick them up, and you realize there's a lot of die-cast weight behind the scenes. And not only just die-cast is the thing that makes this the selling point of the figure, but also the fact it has as many accessories as it does. I always appreciate the fact that they took the time to include the pilot. So, of course, the pilot, the whole time we've been looking at the remaining of this review, the whole time this pilot's been sitting inside the cockpit. The only thing I will say, though, the one thing I am worried about, other than just having the back flap being always something that continues to fall off, other than that skirting, it's just the allowance for the cockpit here. The canopy is one that you just really want to be careful when it comes to bringing this out. Don't just immediately pull this up or just try to pry it up, because it will eventually snap. I mean, it's sitting really only on just 2 connecting points on the top, so you really want to make sure that if you have the figure displayed, stay with the canopy up. You can certainly do that also as well. Really, again, a nice release from the folks over at Threezero. Not only is the ROBO-DOU Rabidly dog very misleading when it comes to its weight, but it's also very misleading when it comes to its posability points. You'd be very surprised how posable Rabidly dog is until eventually you get it out of the packaging, with lots of ways of also featuring the figure. I've got currently the cockpit opened up, of course, revealing the very non-articulated Kiriko Kuvi inside. I do kind of wish in a way that Kiriko could have had some posability points, but considering really his place is sitting inside the cockpit of ROBO-DOU Rabidly dog, I really guess you don't necessarily need to have the figure have any level of articulation. The figure also comes included with the handy solid shooter, not to mention again the bomb for the backpack, and as well that additional shell case ejection effect for the arm punch. There's a lot of things going on here for such a figure of a small size. What do you guys think, though, of ROBO-DOU Rabidly dog? Have you had the chance to pick this one up for yourself? It is available as of right now through online sites. Threezero, I think, still has this stocked on their site. And of course, you can always go as well the route of going to your local brick and mortar comic book stores. Some specialty stores also do stock Threezero pieces, although most of the time my best bet is usually trying to track one down online. But if you have picked up this figure, let me know down below in the comment section what you guys think of it, and let me know if you've ever watched Armored Trooper Votoms. Again, if you guys did enjoy this video, want to hit with a like. If you guys are loving the content you guys are seeing, and you certainly would like to stick around for more, if you haven't already done so, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below, and you're turning on the bell notification. As always, guys, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.